This is an NBC Palm Springs special report. Coronavirus facts, not fear. Presented by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
And now we begin our NBC Palm Springs special report, Coronavirus Facts, Not Fear. We're dedicating this half hour each day to in-depth interviews with a range of experts and professionals. Now more than ever, it's vital we hear directly from local leaders as we sift through confusing and rapidly changing information. The U.S. coronavirus death toll inches closer to 100,000 deaths. Nearly 99,000 Americans have now died from the virus. And there's now growing concern we'll pay a price for the large Memorial Day gatherings we saw all across the country. I'm so excited to introduce you to our first guest tonight. We have Dr. Doreen Dodgen Magee, and she's a psychologist, author, speaker, researcher on how tech impacts our brain and our relationships. And now more than ever, I knew I had to invite her on because we need to talk about our dependency right now as we've self-isolated, as we've been in quarantine. A lot of us, the whole family, even from the youngest ones, to grandma and grandpa, are finding themselves more reliant on social media and media in general, technology more than ever. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored to be with you.
Thank you. So we're going to just dive right in. Great. We're kind of in the later stages of quarantine. Things are starting to open up a little bit more, but kids are still home. A lot of us are still stuck at home. So we've built up months of being stuck at home, relying on social media, being glued to the television. How can we start to unravel our dependency when we're just mindlessly scrolling through all of our social media applications? What can we start to do to work backwards?
That's a great question. We really are in this phenomenon that researchers who have researched other kinds of situations where people have been in isolation for a long period of time, like in space travel or submarine travel or even Arctic research centers, they call the stage that we're in right now the third quarter phenomenon, which when everybody is kind of irritated and agitated, people may be feeling somewhat depressed, and also morale is low. And one of the things that's interesting to me, given my research, is that these are all four things that are deeply impacted by high amounts of technology use. So not only is the time of life that we're in kind of this time that can create agitation and irritation and depression, but also the fact that we have filled it with media use also leaves us at risk or at greater risk for those experiences. So the biggest thing I would say that I think we need to be doing right now is to be amping up the way in which we are engaging our embodied experience, which has been really difficult when we've been stuck kind of in small and tight quarters. So even things like setting aside times of the day or spaces within the house where technology doesn't go and where we have kind of seeded the space with lots of embodied experiential opportunities, things like kinetic sand or small manipulatives or fidgets, or even there are all kinds of fun things you can put in your house, like pull-up bars or, keep the yoga mat out and some weights out, whatever it is, amping up the smells and the tastes. But anything we can do to kind of get our body back engaged is really going to help us as we try to kind of walk a little bit away from our screens, because we really need to for our mental health.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot of those implications of being bottled up, so to speak, and we're starting to see that anxiety. So the things that I'm hearing from you, these suggestions, are things to help anxiety, because we're all a little bit anxious.
We are, and that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that we can do to help with our anxiety more than anything else is to kind of create opportunities for ourselves to tolerate boredom and to practice it in some ways. There's research out there that tells us that when we can spend even as small as 10 minutes a day doing nothing, kind of being bored but engaging the mind and noticing what's going on, or it could be mindfulness meditation, anything we can do to kind of give ourselves that 10 minutes actually over the long haul can help us become much less depressed and anxious. At the beginning, oftentimes we'll be very anxious because doing nothing is kind of so unfamiliar to us.
I try to make myself bored when I'm on a walk, so I just won't listen to music and I won't listen to a podcast and just kind of let myself just listen to ambient noise, because I think we're constantly streaming information right now, especially me working in television.
Yes.
And I'm constantly feeding
Yes.
information. So that leads into my next question, which is, it is good that people watch the news, of course, it keeps me here. But
Yes.
also we are relying so much on television, getting us that information. And a lot of people are finding themselves almost addicted to the coverage, which, like I said, it's kind of good for us. But at the same time, I know even I have to take a step back. What are some of those safe parameters that we can give ourselves to make our, put some space between us and that constant agitator, which is sometimes the media?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And one of the things I want to help people understand is that if we can understand why we are doing that, that can be the first step in helping us kind of step away, especially if we are feeling overwhelmed by all the constant information, which many of us are. And I think the biggest reason why we're doing that is we feel out of control and we feel a huge sense of loss. We are all experiencing loss of all kinds of autonomy and freedoms or experiences that we've been planning for. And we in America don't do very well with being out of control or, not being able to kind of follow through on the plans we have made. So if we can be aware of that and number one, kind of spend some time like what you do on your walks, being kind of quiet, trying to kind of let some of the big feelings bubble to the surface and name them and work through them. That's the first thing we can do. The second thing we can do is understand that our consumption or constant connection to media is not going to help anything move any quicker. In fact, it's going to make us anxious. There was research that came out long before the pandemic that showed that actually what the researcher called excessive social media use, which in the research study was only 30 minutes of media use, social media use, which we know is a far underestimation of what the amount of time people spend there, can actually cause depression and anxiety and loneliness. So if you think about that, if that was happening before pandemic, before sheltering in place, right now we are actually putting ourselves at risk in terms of our mental health by staying as tethered to our devices and the news as we are. So if we can know why we're doing it and know that it's harmful to us, and then hopefully privilege some opportunities to practice other ways of being, again, like you do, take walks, do some stretching, jump rope, go outside and just stare at the clouds.
That's awesome. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about our children and social media reliance, especially now that school is online. So stay with us.
This is an NBC Palm Springs special report. Coronavirus facts, not fear. Presented by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Welcome back. I'm here with Dr. Doreen Dodgen Magee, and a psychologist who's talking to us about our reliance on devices and social media and how we can take a step back, especially as we have been in this pandemic. So I know I have a lot of friends whose children are more reliant than ever on their iPads. And it's not necessarily the TV anymore. I think that was the thing, I don't know, like the 80s and the 90s. And now it is the iPad. And now especially the kids are being assigned school on their iPads. Those lines are blurred between work and play. So what can parents do to get their kids away from their device?
Yeah, the first thing I think that they have to do is be aware that they are modeling all the time. So if the parents themselves are constantly on their screens, but asking their kids not to be, that's going to be an issue right away. So modeling well. The second thing I think they have to do, or parents can do, to empower their children to walk away from screens is to create some kind of what I call muses worthy of leaving technology for. So this may be really inconvenient and uncomfortable and costly in the way of time or money or energy for parents, but creating spaces within their home and environment or that are safe to be in, even with sheltering in place orders, that are engaging and fun. Too often now kids have acclimated to such high levels of stimulation with their screens that the things they can do in their embodied lives don't feel as enticing or exciting and literally don't release the same kind of neurotransmitters or hormones that our tech does. So this is going to mean finding some edgy options for our kids, and that's going to certainly be dependent on their developmental stage and their age. But things like a slack line in the backyard or hammocks in the backyard, or if you don't have a backyard, hammock inside that your kiddo can play with. Again, lots of embodied experiences, and some of them that are just wildly fun.
Yeah, I've been hearing you talk a lot about allowing like a part of the home or a part of your living space that is specifically for play. And I think right now the hard thing for a lot of families is that line has been blurred. Parents are working at home,
Yes.
we're eating
Yes.
at home, we're doing everything at home. So now we have to, you know, as things start to reopen, it's now time to get back into the world and make home that place for play, I guess, or not for work.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we're probably going to have to live with a little bit that is going to be hard is homes that aren't maybe as tidy or straightened or clearly delineated as we would like them to be. In order for our kids to want to walk away from their screens, they're going to have some stuff out and easily available to them. And so that's going to be hard for us to maybe tolerate. Maybe we have one day where everything is pristine and the other days we pull out the balance boards and the jump ropes and the games. But I do think I have immense empathy for parents right now. They are being asked to do Herculean tasks while at the same time, you know, having to shepherd their children through a really profoundly difficult emotional experience, which I also do want to say that the World Health Organization has been ringing the alarm for about a month or a little more about this kind of the idea of a third wave that's going to come in terms of the pandemic. And that is the mental health wave that we're about to see. And I think we are going to see some of that with children and especially adolescents as the structure of school ends, but we're still asking those kiddos for safety to still be very careful and cautious and sheltering. And so it's important for parents to really take notice if your children, especially your adolescents, are, you know, sleeping all day or not sleeping at all. If they aren't being able, actually literally behaviorally, to walk away from their screens without experiencing tantrums or high anxiety. If they have real significant or severe changes in their eating habits or loss or weight gain, if they start pulling away from you and isolating, or if they start talking a lot about guilt or kind of a total lack of any kind of accountability, those are signs of depression and anxiety in children. And we want to take that really seriously in this time where a lot is on their plate.
That's a good point. Yeah. So this is going to be kind of definitely a learning experience for all of us, because none of us have been through a pandemic before. I mean, select few, but not most of us haven't. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been
Thank you.
Yes, and I want to mention too that you are an author of a book, Deviced: Balancing Life and Technology in a Digital World. I'm a big fan, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good one. We'll be
Thanks.
back.